What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to dig through history to take a look at the Bitcoin price chart when the bottom came in back in 2018. Now, we've run through everything on here, showing the similarities of what price action has done currently to the previous two major bear markets for Bitcoin, the 2014 bear and the 2018 bear, that by the time the 50-week had crossed the 100-week moving average, after Bitcoin had bounced off the 50-week, then broke through the 100-week right in here. Once these two crossed each other, the bottom had already been in. Same was the case for here in 2018. Bouncing off the 50-week, finally plunging through the 100-week. By the time these two had crossed, the bottom had already been in. As we can see here in 2021, 2022, bouncing off the 50-week and then finally breaking through the 100-week. Here we are. We have both of them crossing once again well before or well after capitulation had occurred in this moment in here. So based off the charts that we see here, there are incredible amounts of similarities to what has happened in the previous two bottoms. Does that mean the bottom's in? Nope. Just shows that if people are looking for similarities between these corrections that have happened for Bitcoin, all of these things have already occurred. Bouncing off the 50-week, breaking the 100-week, then the 50-week crossing the 100-week. All of these things occurred in the past two major bears for Bitcoin, and by the time that occurred, bottom was already in. But that's not the point of this video. I actually want to take a look at something else when it comes to the bottom of Bitcoin coming back in here in December of 2018, because that's also where the bottom of the altcoin market came in December of 2018. That was the case for Bitcoin Cash. That was the case for Ethereum. That was the case for Ethereum Classic, Litecoin, and the total market cap of the entire cryptocurrency market, which we can see during the C19 sell-off came right back down to visit it without setting a new low. Almost like a double bottom, but the official bottom being right back in here in December of 2018 as Bitcoin's bottom came in. But while Ethereum's bottom did come in there in December of 2018, along with Litecoin and Binance Coin, and even though the total market cap of crypto and the altcoin market cap of crypto both bottomed here in 2018, December 2018, it wasn't the case for everything. You can see over here that Cardano actually went all the way down to 1.7 cents before going on its bull run. The same was true for Doge, with the bottom taking place right over here in December of 2018, going below it, then really going below it in the C19 sell-off before then going. The same is true for Tron, the bottom over here in December of 2018, and we could see that we actually did go below this level. The same is true for Stellar Lumens, with December of 2018 being way over here, and you could see that throughout the remainder of time, while the rest of the market, or the market caps and Bitcoin consolidated and went sideways, we could see that Stellar Lumens just continued rolling down. And of course, everybody's favorite, XRP over here, same story with the capitulation and the bottom of the market coming in right there in December of 2018. Yet, we still continue to do all of this, even though the total market cap of crypto was able to maintain that low. Bitcoin was able to maintain that low, and even the altcoin market in general was able to maintain that low. Not everything did. And if we hypothetically assume that Bitcoin has bottomed, that it's already played out the exact same things that it's played when bottoms come in, even from fractals and from moving averages and all the behavior and timing of what happens when bottoms have already come in. And if we take the guess that the altcoin market story is the same, bouncing off that 200-week moving average, bouncing off a retest of the previous all-time high. If we played with the idea that the bottom of both of them is in, does the behavior of the last market cycle tell us that everything has to have bottomed already at the same time? And I think an interesting example to discuss moving forward is going to be Cardano ADA for the rest of this video. If you were with my channel throughout 2019 and 2020, I've always stated my largest holding was XRP and my second largest holding was Cardano. While XRP did not have as majestic of a run as Cardano did, Cardano's run was quite impressive. From the moment we're talking about where that bottom came in December of 2018, just from that level, Cardano's run went up over 11,000%. From its actual literal bottom down in here, it actually rose up over 17,000%. while not going significantly higher than its all-time high, the actual run that Cardano did was mighty impressive. We're seeing a lot of weakness emerging here in Cardano right now, where we've seen strength emerge in Cosmos, a bounce in Ethereum Classic, a bounce in Ethereum, even XRP catching a nice bounce, and QNT just, man, keeping on going. But Cardano is looking exceptionally weak. Now, if we do look to the past of where Cardano actually is, this was the resistance level after that initial bounce that took place back in March of 2018. This is the resistance that took place right here. If we head over to 2020, 2021 right in here, this was the level it had to work out through, and you can see its sign of strength emerging in here as we are now back at this sign of strength. So, there's still a case here that there's a support level that's still coming in right in here. However, Cardano does just look exceptionally weak. And while I don't know which ones will set new lows, which ones won't set new lows, I don't know if the 200-week moving average is going to hold and start this thing rampaging up in here like it has for Bitcoin historically. Or if the same fractals or the same moving averages, everything, if all of that's going to magically play out and things are going to be perfect. I can't predict the future. I can only take my best guess at it based on how this market has behaved before, which for those who followed the channel in 2019, 20, 21, and 22, the thing we were talking about was Bitcoin super cycles, and that everything that had happened here for Bitcoin in the 2018 through 2020, quote, bear market was actually still just a part of the actual super cycle that was occurring in here for Bitcoin. And we magically were going to the exact same levels, topping, bottoming, retracing, right back to the same levels over here. And then again, reconsolidating down at the lows once again at the same levels again. So our big ride up, our big fall down, our retracement, our reconsolidation, and our breakout, which is exactly what we had here, right? Our big breakup, our fall back down to the lows, our reconsolidation and reaccumulation, and then our breakout. But this was all behaving the same. So watching to see how things play out in here, we get an interesting top happening in here, but what do you know happens in here at the same time? We get the same capitulation ending that we've been looking for to happen in here after the euphoric moment of the market took place back in here with Coinbase IPOing, laser eyes, diamond hands, all that good stuff. So that's the conclusion of my guess. But after holding these lows down here since June for the market, I think we're starting to see some signs emerge that even if the market cap does hold, even if Bitcoin does hold, Cardano is giving a signal that maybe not everything is going to actually have its bottom here. We've seen that dynamic play out before, and the move that Cardano had last night with this big move right down in here may have given a clue that we're going to see some similarities to what we've seen before, regardless of if the entire market cap of crypto still maintains, assuming that it does maintain. Now, when it comes to Cardano, Cardano is actually dealing with its own set of issues, or at least the perception of Cardano is amongst the investor community. And so while we have lots of things showing that things like Bitcoin have completed exact versions of their bottoms from history, which, as we know from 2018, when that happened for Bitcoin, it also happened for the altcoin market at the same time. But not everything was created equal. So it's really kind of the point I'm trying to make, is we're starting to see this kind of weakness emerge in some assets, including Cardano. And I'm going to talk about Cardano for the rest of this video because I think there's also an additional issue going on with Cardano in itself that is causing it to lose some faith in the community. And I'm going to try to do this as respectful as possible and just try really kind of be like fact oriented. My goal is not to slander. My goal is not to make things up or portray things in a way that they're not. But if you don't know, there's been a huge online Twitter debacle, I guess, between Charles Hoskinson and the XRP community. So if you don't know, Charles Hoskinson is the CEO of IOHK. He is the founder of Cardano. This guy, he recently went on Tony Edwards' Thinking Crypto and was asked about the SEC and XRP and the lawsuit and Ethereum and all that stuff. And I'll play this for you really quick.
Switch gears and talk a bit about the crypto market at large. Folks wanted me to ask you, what do you think about what's happening with the SEC and all they're doing with crypto regulations? A lot of people not happy with Gary Gensler, the recent Kim Kardashian PR stunt, as well as the SEC Ripple lawsuit and the judge's, takes on what's been happening there as it relates to Ethereum, and the amicus briefs and things like that.
Yeah. Well, there's some people in the XRP community that are trying to invent this grand conspiracy that there was blatant corruption between the insiders at the SEC and Ethereum. And, I don't honestly think that that's the issue here. I think the issue is that both the CFTC and the SEC are ill-equipped from law and policy to properly regulate the cryptocurrency space. And so what they're doing is they're just trying to do it the way that they think they can with the framework they have. The SEC only has the ability to regulate if something is a security. If it's not, then it's not their wheelhouse. And so they're one of the very few US regulatory bodies that has a consumer arm, because everyday people own stock. And so they have lots of people, they have lots of enforcement capabilities. And let's be honest here, Luna happened. Yeah. BitConnect happened. OneCoin happened. Okay, so thousands of cases every year of bad behavior have occurred in our industry, and the losses have gone from millions to billions to almost $1 trillion in under 13 years, faster than any industry before. And usually when you have an agency failure in the tens of billions of dollars, it does result in the creation of new law. A great example of that would be the collapse of Enron that led to Sarbanes-Oxley, or the 2008 financial crisis, which led to the Dodd-Frank Consumer Protection Act. Okay, so what's happened is the legislative branch hasn't done its job. They haven't showed up, and they haven't passed new laws to give new powers, new bureaucracies, new standards to properly regulate the cryptocurrency space.
And so let me just kind of touch on his point here really quick. His point is that the true issue of the matter here going on with the SEC is overreach. Regulation by enforcement doesn't work. There's a lack of clarity. And that's the main issue here. That in order to win, in order to move forward as an industry, we have to focus way more on that subject alone. The problem is he took a shot.
Well, there's some people in the XRP community that are trying to invent this grand conspiracy that there was blatant corruption between the insiders at the SEC and Ethereum. And, I don't honestly think that that's the issue here.
Again, from reading into what he's really saying there, he's not saying that that's not true. He's saying he doesn't think that that's the issue here, but that the issue is more about regulation, overreach, inconsistent rules, and a lack of clarity. So I'll give him the benefit of that doubt. But this is the problem.
Well, there's some people in the XRP community that are trying to invent this grand conspiracy that there was blatant corruption between the insiders at the SEC and Ethereum.
So he makes the statement that XRP community members are inventing the idea of there being corruption between Ethereum and between the SEC. That is what triggered a whole debacle happening over here on Twitter. Now, why are we even talking about this in the first place? What does that have anything to do with charts? If you know anything about me, I try not to get involved in any drama. No matter what anyone is saying, I never call people out by name. It's something that I just have never done on my YouTube channel. A lot of people love to call me out by name. A lot of people try to talk trash and all that stuff, but I never ever single a person out and talk trash about them. And if you don't know this about me, I've been sober for almost 10 years. And one thing I learned in life is that it's best to not hold resentments, or it's best to not cause problems when you don't need to. I always ask myself these two questions. Does it need to be said? And does it need to be said by me? Do I need to be sticking my neck into this? Or can I just kind of let this thing kind of play out on its own and me have no part in it whatsoever? And for the last 4 days, that's what I've done. I've sat on the sideline, just let this thing kind of play out on its own. But now I'm seeing things emerge on the charts. So now I've got to be like, okay, so what now? And let me say this too. I am a Cardano holder, or an ADA holder. Like I mentioned back in here, it was the second largest bag that I had. I took a 65% exit out of here as all this stuff was crumbling down here in mid-June. I did reallocate some of my portfolio into ADA. So I do have a healthy sized bag of ADA. I want it to succeed, but I have to be critically thinking about this scenario, whether this is just short term, right? This could just last for a week or two and everybody moves on from it. Or is it longer term? Don't know. Maybe it'll resolve itself. There's no question ADA is one of the weakest looking coins out there right now. I don't know if that leads to a lot of the frustration coming from Charles Hoskinson. This is not the first time he's sitting here and just blatantly going after coins and talking trash. Literally the day before all of this happened, he's on Twitter calling people from Ethereum Classic the skin of evil, as he's over here engaging in arguments regarding Ethereum Classic and the people involved with Ethereum Classic just the day prior, saying, no, Donald, you literally are the skin of evil. I'm very glad you'll stay trapped on an abandoned planet far away from anyone so you can't harm anyone else. And recent events have me recalling the Star Trek episode Skin of Evil. It's amazing how fiction mirrors or predicts real life. So it's not like he isn't being combative on Twitter. He was combative on Twitter about another project just the day before, or another coin. And actually, I even had my timeline wrong. That whole Ethereum Classic Skin of Evil stuff is in the morning, and this is by the evening that this is all going on now, with people saying, hey, Charles, I think your statement's out of line by saying it's all a conspiracy. Here's digital asset investors saying, I think Charles Hoskinson is a good guy, but he got this one wrong. We have the timeline. We have the video. We have John Deaton. Charles is welcome on my channel anytime with John Deaton to go over which parts are conspiracy and which parts are facts. I'm a fan. I hold ADA. He responds, conspiracy or not, my point is that it doesn't matter. I explained how we got here and how we need to get out. The entire XRP affair shouldn't have happened. It's bad for the industry, and regulation through enforcement doesn't do any good for anyone. So there's his real point, right? His real point is it's not about focusing on that. It's focusing on the way things are regulated currently right now. And I get that. But again, he tries to kind of like dismiss his own statements that he has said in here by saying conspiracy or not, my point is that it doesn't matter. John Deaton chimes in, they're working it all out. It's like, hey, let's get something going here. Let's get everybody on a show and we can all discuss this together. Of course, there's going to be people on Twitter. I'm very well aware of it. I get all of it at me too. But, people who are probably stepping out of line, coming at Charles saying, hey, let's burn him at the stake, right? And so, of course, he comes back and says, recently, the most surprising thing to me has been how hard I'm being hit by some of the XRP side for my recent comments on their SEC issues. I've always been of two minds here, and I guess some nuance is required to explain, which the internet always lacks. He makes an argument in here that cryptocurrencies are not securities. He states Ripple created something that has an ecosystem that will survive Brad, Chris, David, or anyone else. The very fact that there's an independent XRP army criticizing me is proof of this reality. The ledger will run likely for decades, trading value. The merits of the case should rest on the absurdity of applying securities regulation to something that has millions of independent participants in more than 100 countries who cannot be controlled by any fiduciary of a single company. Thus, it seems totally unnecessary to construct elaborate personal attacks on former and current government employees and also attack Bitcoin for its energy use or Chinese influence. Individual corruption has nothing to do with Howey. We cannot ignore the trillions of dollars of value appear and disappear yearly now. In the absence of bespoken regulation, regulators will just try to apply the existing rules as they see fit, regardless if it makes sense or if it's fair. Again, going back to his whole argument that it shouldn't be so much focused on Ethereum, it shouldn't be focused on Jay Clayton, Bill Hinman, but just focusing on the actual facts of securities. But at the same time, still dismissing that any of that has occurred or is a conspiracy that it occurred, and then just kind of keeps digging his hole on that. Digital asset investor responds, I wanted to get away from this, but now we've been accused of grand conspiracy and constructing an elaborate personal attack. We just made all this up? Wow. Charles responds and says, I didn't say you made anything up. I said it's totally unnecessary for the facts of Ripple case and actually harm it. It's not a defense to say you should get away with speeding because someone else did. Corruption is a different matter and should be handled elsewhere. Well, I can see the point that he's making here, but it's not what he said.
Well, there's some people in the XRP community that are trying to invent this grand conspiracy that there was blatant corruption between the insiders at the SEC and Ethereum.
And here he's saying, I didn't say you made up anything. Well, you just said that people are inventing it. Let me also say this. I don't really try to get in the middle of the whole XRP and Ethereum thing. I really try to avoid all the tribalism in that on my channel. If there's something going on with Ethereum, I'll cover it. Ethereum's clearly the number 2 asset in the space. I don't ever want to get caught in the middle of being in a tribalistic position. I'm not there, man. So if you want me to be on team coin and anti-team other coin, it's not going to happen. I mean, I'll point out stuff when it's wrong, It totally seems like the founders of Ethereum totally went in and worked a deal with the SEC, and that impacted Ripple, and that's jacked up and wrong. Totally. It doesn't change the fact that Ethereum is still being adopted. And when I buy coins and I'm investing in the cryptocurrency market, I'm trying to use my brain on what is going to be the things that have the best chance at working and the best things that will be adopted, right? And sometimes I'm not right, right? Like I've been thinking privacy would be important to people. People don't care at all. Unbelievable. Will they care in the future? I would sure think so, man. CBDCs, but they haven't shown that they care yet. They're totally cool with having public transactions and the government monitoring them. They say they're not, but they're fine with it. Their wallet, right? We all make decisions with our wallet. If you say you don't want to buy something made in China, why do you still go to Walmart and buy stuff made in China? You know what I mean? Same thing goes for privacy. You can scream about the government monitoring you, but if you don't make a decision on it, it doesn't really matter, right? But my point being is that, when I look at things, I think of them from the aspect of, what seems to have a chance of getting adopted, what makes sense to me. And I totally get it. It totally seems like Ethereum kind of worked a deal out with the SEC, but you're not going to catch me like being tribal about the actual coins, right? If it's going to be adopted, it's going to be adopted and used. If anything, it's like a bullish case. It's like, wow, the government is actually totally corrupt and working with Ethereum. Oh, yeah. Sounds like it has a good chance of survival, right? So anyway, we'll finish this portion here real quick. Where this all ends up going is Charles then says, he's responding to David Gockstein, and I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that. David says, man, Charles is a smart dude, but going against the XRP army wasn't smart. And why can't we just come together already? What's the beef about, man? He says, there is no beef, David. I was asked a question during an interview. I shared an opinion. Then a wave of people started attacking me on Twitter. I then wrote a 16-tweet thread with my full thoughts. If this is how XRP army treats people who actually want them to win, ... no more after that. And so that's where it kind of like takes the turn where he kind of like lumps the whole XRP army together. Anybody investing in XRP, you are now lumped together and you are now labeled as this group of people attacking Charles Hoskinson, whether it was just a couple of reply guys that were in there. And if you notice, you saw Digital Asset Investor, you saw John Deaton, you see David in here. Everybody's being pretty respectful, saying, hey, man, what's going on here? How about we have a discussion about this and try to really kind of get to the thoughts of what's really happening here. But unfortunately, Charles plays victim and says it's the entire XRP army, entire group, everybody involved in XRP. Then he moves on to say, I didn't want this. And now with the continued harassment, I want nothing to do with any of it. Best of luck. Again, it's a closed matter. I want nothing to do with this conversation. If you can't understand why this outcome occurred, then I'm truly sorry. Time to move on. Great. Now conspiracy theory is spread to me. I guess the guy at Ethereum for only 6 months prior to launch who proposed a different distribution and fundraising model is somehow connected to the years after I left. This is really sad and shameful. Really, XRP army? Again, whole XRP army gets labeled in there together. He minimizes his role that he played at Ethereum as one of the founders of Ethereum. John Deaton says, hey, this is why people called you out, Charles, because you're a leader in this community and you make headlines like this when you speak and your comments undermine the important work of Empower US and nonprofit DC Watchdog that isn't even a part of the XRP community. Charles responds, you're a lawyer, John, and understand full well that the corruption discussion will have no impact on the current is XRP a security conversation. It's a completely separate matter and should be treated as such. All it does is fragment the space and reduce the chance of winning. You're arguing with someone who has spent years fighting government corruption from the audit, the Fed days to calling out the C-19 madness. It's okay to be angry about selective enforcement. It's literally institutionalized with BitLicense, but proper steps need to be taken. Again, what you have to kind of realize that what the XRP community recognizes here is stepping away from the matter, not acknowledging ever in here that he took a shot by saying that it's a grand conspiracy to think it is. Instead, he kind of twists it a little bit and says, but the focus is more on this. The focus is more on, what's going on with actual regulations. So we have to fight it from that end. And it's like, okay, we get it, but you're still calling everybody conspiracy theorists and you're lumping everybody in together and you're saying everybody is a harasser. Anyway, here we are 4 days later. I've done a good enough job keeping my head in the sand, not being a part of this at all. What are we doing here, Blockchain Backer? We're like 30 minutes into this video. What is this, like a Mean Girls episode? We're just sitting here gossiping about drama going on Twitter. Everything is going to circle back, but let's just, this is what his response was this morning. It says on XRP, he posted a 15-minute video, really kind of, just going through it and building his whole story on, why he's in the right, why he's the victim here. But here we go.
So it came as a tremendous surprise, the incredible wave of criticism I received for a single comment, which was taken out of context from an interview. I was in an interview called Thinking Crypto, at my ranch and casually asked a question what I thought about a belief that the entirety of the Securities Exchange Commission is engaged in a financial conspiracy with Joe Lubin and the Ethereum group to solely single out and go after Ripple. And I said this was a grand conspiracy because it obviously is. There is no evidence that the entire Securities Exchange Commission has decided to only go after XRP and no one else. There are hundreds of enforcement actions they have pursued in the cryptocurrency space. The current commissioner, the current chairman of the Securities Exchange Commission, has repeatedly gone on record saying he believes most cryptocurrencies are securities. So obviously, while XRP is one of the first in line, it seems that the SEC intends, or at least is saying, that they're perhaps going to pursue a broad regulatory capture of our entire industry.
And I think that's a fair argument to make, that, right? It very well could just be that. And rather than focusing on it just being that this was totally 100% just to get Ethereum a free pass and to stifle Ripple, but that it's probably more than that too. It's probably having to do a lot with being able to capture the whole market and regulate the whole market, whatever comes out of the settlement or whatever the final outcome is of this case, to have some ammunition moving forward on what control they can have on the cryptocurrency market. Was it a mix of both of them? It sure seems like it, that there was some behind closed deals made between Ethereum and made between Bill Him and Jay Clayton and the SEC, and that it's not fair that, one group of people get the door shut on them and the other group get the door opened for them. Whereas everybody else kind of sits in the dark wondering, can I go through the door or not go through the door? I think that's a fair thing. But he doubles down on grand conspiracy about it, right? And, and he plays the victim too at the same time, right? And that kind of just seems a repetitive behavior that you see over here, is this attacking and having to remember that literally just that morning he's in a combat on Twitter calling people the skin of evil. And you don't have to follow Charles Hoskinson for very long to see that these types of things do happen on here on Twitter with him. That he gets combative on Twitter, but at the same time he's playing the victim. And so, all right, why are we still doing this, Blockchain Backer? Is this episode of Mean Girls over yet? The drama going on here. The point that I really wanted to make with all of this, that, when I think of ADA and I think of Cardano and Charles Hoskinson and related to the XRP community, and the fact that Cardano has shown so much weakness in here, which you never know. This whole thing could turn around, right? Charles could decide to go on and have his interview with John Deaton or whatever and turn this thing civil and say, you know what? I do understand where you guys are coming from. I'm sorry that I made you feel like you're silly. And you know what? I understand where you're coming from. But at the same time, while you may be right on all of that, and there does seem to be some type of improper play happening in there, I still think the thing we have to focus on is winning this battle the right way and going at it from the law perspective. And I think you guys are valid to have the feelings that you have, but I still think we need to have it go at it from a law perspective. And I'm sorry that I called it a grand conspiracy. Something does look improper here. I think you guys are onto something, but at the same time, I still think we got to go at this from the law perspective. I think that's all anybody wants to hear. I don't think they want to be told they're crazy. I don't think people want to be lumped into a whole category of XRP army, XRP community as a bunch of harassers, because they're not. You're talking about like 5 people on Twitter who gave you a hard time, and then you take a whole investment community and you lump them into one group. That's not right. And so again, here we are, Mean Girls, what's going on, dude? The thing is, ADA is obviously already showing weakness happening here for itself. And if you don't know this about ADA, is that there's really kind of been this alliance between the XRP community investors and ADA. And that when the lawsuit was filed against Ripple and XRP was delisted from exchanges back in 2020 and early 2021, a lot of people flocked from XRP over to ADA. A ton of people. This whole price surge right in here, where Cardano goes from 12.8 cents all the way up to $1.55. This is in the 2 months after the lawsuit happened. Again, hard to give credit to just saying that it's people flocking from XRP over to ADA. As we talk about when there's like alt seasons that happen in the market, there's 2 different conditions that typically happen or do happen in the market. It's one, Bitcoin's breaking out into a new all-time high, or Bitcoin's going back into a retracement. Bitcoin was breaking out into a new all-time right in here, so it's hard to credit it just to saying XRP community members were flocking over to ADA, because Charles at the time was giving us some clarity and some understanding of what was going on, and that, it's going to be a long battle ahead. But he gave clarity to understanding what was happening because, like he mentioned, he's been through all this stuff. He's seen all types of things, and he was really there to help people just understand what was happening and made people feel like he was on their side. And the XRP community appreciated that. And a lot of people did flock from XRP over to ADA. I have no clue what damage he has now done to take an entire group of people, one of the largest groups in the investment community for cryptocurrency, and label them as harassers and say you want nothing to do with it and grand conspiracies. I don't know, man. From a chart perspective, this looks like a breakdown happening in here for Cardano. Still, it's holding the low that it set back there in May. Here on Binance, you check over here on Coinbase and you see that it actually has wick down below. So the thing that is happening right now is a lot of negative attention. A lot of people who have been supporters of Cardano are abandoning ship right now. They're selling heavily right now. Will that cause a dramatic breakdown is the big question. It looks like a breakdown, even though technically it's still holding that low. That is what these breakdowns have looked like. But you look back over here and you say, hey, man, that thing is still technically holding this big, massive support level that's over in here. This is also a big support level and resistance level that it had to crack out through. It's actually finally backtesting it and still waddling in here. So hard to say. And here's the problem with Cardano when you look at it on this bigger chart perspective in here. Let's say Cardano just kind of comes down to right here and then just kind of bounces, right? That's not that big of a move when we look at the whole thing. The only problem is this little move right here takes you down to below 30 cents. So that's over 25% down on these small lines. You do a bigger bounce to like this, that's even bigger in here. 50% move down happening in here to go down to another level. So ADA, a tough read. And, why you would attack an entire community that has supported you, and you've got them all sitting there saying they're selling their bags, man. Not only do you have anger and frustration at this actual platform, but getting some breaks to appear to start happening here on Cardano. And so what does that mean? Does that mean that the money is flocking out of the cryptocurrency market because Cardano is breaking? No, not necessarily, right? I mean, the low on the altcoin market could still continue to hold. It would just mean the money would rotate to somewhere else. I mean, you would think, right? People are selling out of their anger for Cardano, but still they were wanting to be invested in the cryptocurrency market, but they're just selling to get out of Cardano because they don't want anything to do with it anymore. Probably moving it somewhere else. Some people maybe moving it to cash, saying, you know what, I'm just going to put it in cash for a little while, but you'd think a lot of people are probably just moving it and rotating it, but we'll see. So I really never wanted to even talk about the Cardano thing. I was like, I'm just going to let this thing pass us by and not worry about it. But then Cardano goes on and breaks itself. So, is that going to be just a Cardano related thing, or is that going to be a broader market thing, right? So I think that's kind of where at this waiting point right now on this market to say, hey, is Cardano just dealing with its own issues, or is the whole market dealing with more issues? And that move in Cardano right there, a little alerting, but at the same time, we also know there is literally an entire group of people who are saying, forget this particular coin, screw this thing, I'm out of here. They're publicly stating on Twitter that they're selling their bags. You have content creators making a bunch of negative content about ADA right now. So definitely on alert right now, watching what's happening, going to monitor the rest of the market right now. But we see Cardano doing its thing. As for Bitcoin, still just ranging. Altcoin market, still ranging. I can tell you, I definitely feel dirty after making this video. I don't like getting into any of that drama or any of that type of stuff out there. But the reality is we see one coin breaking down, and that's Cardano right now. And the question comes, is this a broader market issue on why Cardano is breaking down, or is this a Cardano specific thing that is breaking down? Cardano is not the only coin out there that's showing weakness at this point. And like we've seen throughout history, even if the bottom of Bitcoin is in, even if the bottom of the altcoin market is in, some will bounce heavy, some will take much longer before they find their true bottom. And that's kind of what we're waiting on right now to see. Is this market going to revert? Is that Bitcoin dominance going to fall? Are we going to get our story pretty soon? But what's happening with Cardano is quite interesting. And at the same time, we do know they've got a lot of stuff happening that is anti-excitement. It is full-blown anger and frustration and people abandoning ship on Cardano. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm not here to be a fudster. I'm not here to down talk anything. just trying to kind of present the thing that's actually happening out there in the world. And, there's people who probably want it presented in a different way, or maybe I didn't present it properly. It's not my point. Trying to do it with my limited time constraints and try to be as fair as I possibly can. But all right, that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope that you liked it. This is ridiculously long. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.